大怪盗アルセーヌ・ルパンが残した不思議な宝物ルパンコレクションがギャングラーに奪われた。失ったものを取り戻すために戦う怪盗、世界の平和を守るために戦う警察、君はどっちを応援する？
Hello and welcome to LupinRecap vs. PatReview, the podcast that's stirring up a storm. I am your host, Wakamasi, and with me is my lovely co-host, Fefner Masamune.
I can't believe stands are aliens. Anyway, hi.
And today, we are talking about episode 26 of Lupin Ranger vs. Pat Ranger. But before that, we got to talk a bit about pacing, specifically why there are parts of a show that some people might call filler, but are really just a necessary part of, even pacing.
Yep.
I think just the hands down, best example to explain to people, what we're talking about would be, the episode set in random villages in the Fire Nation in Season 3 of Avatar.
Mm-hmm.
Those are super necessary.
All those fools who said, it's filler. No, it's important. It's called world building, the other thing that nerds like.
Right. In that case, there's the world building aspect of it, but we also look at the episodes leading up to them. We have the Season 2 finale, where Aang dies, and then the Season 3 premiere, where we learn that, Aang actually died and was brought back to life.
And he has hair now, and it's weird.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of things that we just need a couple of episodes to get used to the new status quo.
Don't fight Katara near the ocean. She will just make a giant fist and punch you.
And that's sort of where we're at with Lupot.
Yeah, we just had the big battle where everyone came together, and, unless it's actually the end of the series, you can't really escalate from there.
Right, and we need to take a few episodes to re-look at what has changed, and I think just as importantly, what hasn't changed. They've teamed up in episode 25, and the movie, and a little bit in Ultimate Weird Combination, but they're not friends.
Absolutely not.
Or at least they don't all know they're friends. Another example of this sort of thing that I think is kind of slept on, early Dragon Ball Z filler.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly the stuff regarding Gohan in the wilderness, and I still think that the Z fighters fighting the Saiyans was, I don't know, it was neat at least.
I think a lot of the earlier Dragon Ball filler was good, and of course, the ones that aren't entire arcs, obviously, Goku's ordeal is the best episode, we all know this. But then you have fake Namek, which that's bad because it interferes with the pacing, which was slow after the Saiyans were defeated. And then, they had that downtime, but then they keep going into downtime that ultimately doesn't matter and is really not that interesting.
Yeah. Early in Z, what it did was it took a thing that was maybe a bit too fast in the manga, the, year of training leading up to Vegeta and Nappa showing up, and stretched it out to a point where it actually fit, and it felt a bit closer to that length of time.
Yeah, Gohan was nice because, it was a lot about the world, and it was a lot about Gohan's training, so it was just, a bunch of short little stories concerning Gohan, and I appreciate that. It's kind of Dragon Ball-esque, without kind of having some of the bad parts of original Dragon Ball.
And, I know originally, at least, Kai, I don't want to say ran into some flack, but there were a few people that wished that those parts were retained.
Yeah.
And I think that's why things like Bulma and Ginyu switching places ended up making it back into Kai.
Weird that stayed, because I wasn't huge on that, honestly.
That might have just been, it might have just been too hard to edit out of those episodes and still have them be fit for broadcast.
Probably, yeah. Did take up a long time.
Yeah, I know there is a literally zero filler cut of Kai that removes that. And I think that it may have just messed with the episode lengths too much.
Yep. And then, of course, there's something like the Garlic Jr. saga, which is just bad.
Yeah, and that was about the time... I can't remember if you already switched to Kai or had just switched to Kai, but Honestly, given how many episodes were just Goku and Frieza, having anything different happen was okay for me. But
Oh my, yep. Basically, I switched to Kai pretty much on the last Frieza fight episode, and I swear it condensed like 3 episodes into one, and it was so much better.
right.
I did not like Namek Saga when I watched it because I hadn't switched to Kai yet.
Yeah, I think like there is a reason that a lot of people are really harsh on filler because it got out of control. Like I get why some people are a little like, well, they throw that word out a bit too easily, but I'm gonna be a hard ass about it.
But yeah,
But despite what we just said, sometimes it's important to slow things down.
I think the problem with Dragon Ball that we were talking about is more just that's on the side of it made things happen slower. Like it's padding for no reason. Here it's actually like narrative stuff that's happening. It's not just slowing down the cuts of the episode, repeating frames, that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's not hitting the same story beats over and over again. We're just getting a little story that's not super involved with the narrative or the characters' arcs. Just having fun. But enough vague posting about the episode.
All I'll say for the rest of this is everybody remembers the plot pyramid, and you should also remember that most teachers will tell you to just not stick so rigidly to the plot pyramid, like, I don't know, 1 or 2 times after you learn it.
Let's go into the episode proper.
So, today we have episode 26, The Hidden Auction. We return back to the proper episode timeline where Lyman has only just died. Remember that guy? I do.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Kogure is berating the Juror trio for working with the cops and asks them not to do that. Kairi's not happy about it either, though, and says that it was Goody's idea. Umika nods. Tuma asks about Noel since fraternization is a problem. Umika nods. Kogure just says that Noel should have stayed in Paris, and Umika asks him if he doesn't have any clues about a collection piece. But it turns out Noel was the one to ask him there. Right on cue, Noel enters the restaurant and says that he needs the group's input. Everyone looks at each other with concern, and the intro rolls. When we return, the Juror trio and Kogure have learned of an underground auction where a collection piece will be sold. He shows them a picture of the item, and Kogure looks it up, stating that its name is Tiny Bubbles. Noel mentions how he found this information thanks to the cops, and goes to say that all they need to do for the collection piece is to win it at the auction. Kogure, with a knowing but very sarcastic smile, reaches into his pocket and pulls out a checkbook. The moment where he realizes what he's here for and is not happy about it. But still has to remain mysterious. Noel takes the checkbook and asks Umika to come along, as having a lady along with him will make him less suspicious. Somehow.
I was gonna say, this isn't a party. Like, everyone else at this auction was single. I don't know. I think he was just wanted Umika to go with him.
Like with any date or date-like situation, Umika looks very uncomfortable, but then we cut to the two of them in a car. Umika's outfit is lovely, and Noel's is very Noel-like. It is the gaudiest thing.
They're both great, but only one of them is actually something you can wear in real life.
Umika wonders if anybody's going to bother placing bets on Tiny Bubbles, but Noel mentions that it has a strange allure. He does not explain what he means by this. At the auction house, Umika and Noel are offered masks, but they hold up their own. And Umika's is just her bright yellow Phantom Thief mask. Maybe she's just a fan. Yeah, that's it. Just a coincidence that she's wearing Lupin Yellow's mask. They sell them at, like, the costume shop. It's fine.
It wasn't until you said Umika held up her own that it occurred to me that Noel has never worn his before this point.
Yeah, he doesn't bother. He doesn't need to hide his face.
But he has one. He just doesn't wear it.
Yeah, later he mentions that his mask does have the whole, like, disguise thing that most of the Phantom Thieves have.
Yeah, that's actually like when we learned that, which is weird for when you're halfway through the show.
Yeah, and they don't really pay much attention to it. It's just, by the way, they disguise us, like, better than most masks do.
I guess they wanted to just smack the nerds who've been complaining about it for 25 episodes. Like, see, we had a reason. It just wasn't important until now.
You just put the mask on and fucking nobody knows who you are. Except Noelle. To be fair, you don't really need the mask for Noelle because the outfit would give it away. If he wore the mask, the Pat Rangers would be like, who's that? Wait, it's Silver. It's gotta be Noelle. God damn it, Noelle. So, anyway, the two enter the auction room, and as Umika looks around, she notices that everyone there must be super rich. And she looks uncomfortable, as one would be in a room full of the bourgeois. Thankfully, though, the item they're looking for is the first one up. Apparently, Tiny Bubbles was stolen from the Louvre about 100 years ago. The bidding begins, and Umika is surprised because 410,000 seems pretty doable. Except Noelle informs her that they're betting in dollars, not yen. Currently, the amount being bid would total about 50 million yen. Umika is immediately sent into a panic attack. Noelle, however, skips to 1 million and only keeps getting higher.
The things you can do when you're not paying.
I'm going to obtain this collection piece, no matter how much Kogure has to suffer for it.
I really did just want, like, somehow just cut to Kogure, like, mystically gazing upon this auction, just like his hands steepled in front of his face, looking incredibly nervous.
He's not even watching it, he's just going about his day, and then he suddenly crushes his teacup. And he just knows it's Noelle. And then eventually, Noelle just bids $2 million and wins Tiny Bubbles. He skips like 500,000. A terrified Umika realizes that $2 million is 200 million yen and faints. Just then, the lights shut off and glass breaks. When the lights come back on, there's a terrible squirrel gangler standing behind the podium. He introduces himself as Grist and runs off. Umika and Noelle pursue. Outside, the two Lupin Rangers cut our squirrel off, and we get right into the squirrel puns. I also realize, even before saying that out loud, that our squirrel will be terrible to say for an entire episode, so we'll just say we reached the quota of that and stick with Grist. Anyway, Grist shoves Les Minuscules Boules in his safe, so the Lupin Rangers attack him. However, he proves to be very fast and dodges about the trees before firing explosive acorns. X shields Yellow, giving Grist a chance to escape, but he's cut off by the Pat Rangers, who aren't too happy to see that Noelle is working with a Lupin Ranger. But they get down to fighting anyway. Gristo realizes he's outmatched, so he uses his collection power and blows bubbles everywhere. Sakia starts popping them. That's not the power. It's bubbles, and then somehow Grist just kind of morphs into the bubbles and disappears.
Yeah, I think they were trying to go for a, put up a smoke screen thing, but bubbles are see-through. So it just looks like
his
he
reflection
melts.
appears in them. It works? Since he's gone, though, the thieves decide to retreat, and Noelle doesn't bother explaining why he's there. Initially, the Pat Rangers think that he must have been acting on intel from the thieves. However, given they'd been investigating that auction with the cops, they seem to come to a new conclusion. Elsewhere, Umika and Noelle are trying to flee the scene of the crime when they're approached by the auctioneer from earlier. Noelle reflexively backflips upon seeing him.
That is the best part of this episode.
He just backflips. I love it. I hope there's a GIF of that available.
I think it's accepted among the fans that Seiya Matoki can just do those backflips in real life and insists on doing it at every opportunity.
God, I love if those backflips weren't even scripted and he just did them. Anytime he flips, that's just his idea. His intro scene, he wasn't supposed to flip all those times. Just did it because he could. It's all improv.
I don't know if it's improv, but it wouldn't surprise me if Matoki just approached the director like, hey, you have me just backing away in this scene? You know I can do backflips, right?
It's in Noel's character to just backflip. So the not-suspicious auctioneer presents them with a bill, which includes an 8% tax fee, killing Umika further. The man tells them that since the item had been sold, its theft is not their problem. Umika's mad, but Noel pays up, noting that once the item is recovered, it is indeed theirs. Back at Jur, Noel gets an earful for letting the worst Ganglar get the best of him, but he's unconcerned with critiques from Tuma and Kairi. Instead, he hands Umika a pen and some paper. Since he'd asked Umika to pay close attention to the people attending, he wants Umika to draw them to try and single out the Ganglar. Even with their masks, she should be able to remember them. I guess that's why he'd brought Umika along. I don't want to draw every person myself.
He can't. We've seen him draw. He's awful.
Well, I mean, neither of them are great, but over time they do sketch up a whole lot of people.
Yeah, Umika's closer to like an actual sketch.
Noel...
Instead of the cartoon drawings Noel submitted.
Yeah, Noel's... shouldn't quit his day job. So we take a short break to see what's going on in hell. Grease is shoving peanuts into his mouth, while the usual crew is surprisingly impressed with him for finding a good use for an otherwise lackluster collection piece. Otherwise, he continues to not really impress. Nobody really knows what he's planning. He says he has a plan, but I guess he's just gonna keep making money from stealing stuff, I guess. Late at night, Umika finishes the final sketch, and Noel takes him to Police HQ. Jem's not entirely sure they'll be useful for his search, but Noel's certain that anyone suspected of stealing from museums will show up. Also, he says that it's an order from the French HQ, so Jem gets to work. Not entirely sure he is telling the truth there, but who knows? We then cut to Noel cartwheeling across the path of the auctioneer from earlier. He presents the man with another...
Not quite a backflip, but close enough.
I still like to believe that was improv. He was supposed to just walk in, but no, just glides across the garage and then gets in his way. He presents the man with another check, and we then get a montage of some of the previous guests receiving invitations for the new auction. At this new auction, taking place in an open-air stage, we see Umika and Noel waiting amongst the audience, while Red and Blue wait above. The guests arrived, a little confused about the venue, and the Phantom Thieves dive in. Yellow then gets up and starts checking for Ganglar disguises, but none of the people who showed up are Ganglars in disguise. With the check finished, Noel realizes that the true culprit is the auctioneer and destroys his disguise with a calling card. The Phantom Thieves line up in Kaito change, and then the Lupin Rangers finally get their lyrical theme as they charge into battle.
Mm-hmm.
Grass
called Lupin Ranger, Here We Go. It is it's jazzy as hell. It reminds me of like a Casinopolis theme. It's great.
Grass fights surprisingly well, but the Lupin Rangers open as safe 0, 2, 7, and recover Les Minuscules Bulles. With that done, X pulls out Good Striker from the void, and Red uses him to split into 3. Blue takes the Cyclone, Yellow takes the Scissors, and X Kaisatsu changes, because we've got to get that costume in this episode. They all charge for their special attacks, and Greystone is hit with a seizing X strike. He explodes spectacularly. Gauche then wanders in after the commercial break, makes Greystone big, and fucks off with the usual lack of enthusiasm. X gives Blue and Yellow fire and thunder to launch, and activates his train as well. Grey Squirrel is faced with the Lupin Kaiser and the X-Emperor Gunner. The fight goes about as well as one would expect, especially since Grease is just not good at fighting more than one opponent. X manages to sneak up on him like twice during the fights. So they eventually finish him off with a shoot-'em-up flash and an X-Emperor slash strike. Garbles falls over and explodes.
I will say that adding a second mech has done a lot for the choreography of these big fights.
Oh yeah, definitely. I do like the way they split up. Lupin Ranger sort of just draws his attention, then Extras comes in. Hey, how's it going?
Mm-hmm. There's only so many ways you can do, and then it shoots it for real with a single robot. But when you have multiple, they can do like neat stuff.
It's clearly not quite at the level of some of the other of the special
The
fights,
movie fight, yeah.
but nothing will be probably.
Mm-hmm.
Elsewhere, the people called to the auction are running away, only to be met by the cops. They might not be ganglars, but they are normal criminals who are suspected of dealing with illegal goods. The normal-ass cops drag the lot away and thank the Pat Rangers for their help. But Kaitro and the gang aren't super happy about Noel handing off his cleanup to them. Saki is at least happy that they still arrested, actual criminals, but Kaitro doesn't seem convinced that Noel isn't being a dick. Back at Jour, Noel hands Kogure Les Minuscules Boules, and he puts it back in the book. Umika asks Noel how much he spent on the auction overall, and Noel tells her he spent about 100 million yen. Umika faints once again, then sits him down and rants at both him and Kogure about money. Because really, they do deserve it.
I think the funniest comment I might have read was like, I don't know why Umika's so mad at Noel. He could just write all this off as a business expense. yeah, fucking hand that over on your taxes. I was about to say the IRS, but this is Japan or France. The IRS probably doesn't care about that.
You've committed so much tax fraud that even the IRS has come to Japan to take you down.
Yeah, like, you don't even pay taxes in our system? We just couldn't sleep at night knowing you were out there.
You are only second to Yoshi and how wanted you are across the entire world for tax evasion.
So anyways, that's the episode.
Alright, Gangler time. Grist is a squirrel. He has a lot of squirrel puns. He fights. There you go.
Yeah, that is the thing about Lyman and his gang, is that like before it felt like we'd usually have a couple of things to talk about the Ganglar, but now it's just, well, he ain't Lyman.
Yeah, like even some of the other like not as important Ganglars were like, you understand that not every monster of the week can be spectacular, and some of them are just gonna be kind of weird, but this guy's kind of prevalent in the episode, but he still doesn't feel amazing.
Yeah.
He's good as cooldown, but he doesn't really get the chance to do much of anything.
Mm-hmm. I do think he has the smartest use of a human disguise so far.
Mm-hmm. Because he just blends in with a bunch of other suspicious people.
Yeah, I think this is the first human disguise that's actually looked human and not like an incredibly shitty human costume. So that's interesting, I guess, but ultimately he's just a squirrel that makes nut puns.
Yep.
So, for other things to discuss, man, it sure has been forever since we've had an Umika-focused episode, hasn't it?
Yeah, but as an Umika-focused episode, we don't really learn much.
Yeah,
we learned that she's far more responsible than Noelle, but, I could have guessed that.
Mm-hmm. This is the sort of episode where, yeah, there's not a whole lot of setup or learning. It's just she's on screen again, finally.
Yeah, it is nice to see her again.
Mm-hmm. It's nice to have an episode feature her heavily, even if it isn't really about her in the way that, episode 7 was.
Yeah, it mostly acts as a cool-down episode.
Mm-hmm.
But with a very limited cast, because even Kairi and Tuma don't really get that much screen time.
Yeah, all the cast members show up, but it is just Umika and Noelle, but it doesn't feel like the other Noelle episodes where he teams up with someone.
Though, to be fair, I will say, Kogure probably got even more time than Kairi and Tuma did. Definitely more time than the Pat Rangers.
You at least had more of an impact.
Mm-hmm.
It's another thing, like, just regarding Kogure. He feels like he's in a weird, almost liminal state right now.
Yeah.
Because at first we were, like, obsessing over everything he did because it was all so weird. And now it's like we know he's weird, we just don't feel the need to acknowledge it every time he shows up.
Yeah, honestly, he was kind of ordinary this episode. The weirdest thing is that he just has a checkbook that he's willing to give, but it's not that weird considering, Lupin.
Yeah, it's Noel, or not Noel, it's Lupin family business. Like, it makes sense. They're going for the same goal regarding the Lupin estate.
And they're rich.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess we gotta try talking about the other half of the episode's focus, Noel. Spends money in backflips. That's all there is to him in this episode.
His flips were very good, though.
I mean, I give him a lot of crap, but if I could do backflips like that, do you think I would stop?
Yeah, no, probably not. I would also abuse my flipping powers.
Just given half a chance to do a backflip. Just hey, look, come back here. I wasn't done talking to you yet. You could have just turned around, asshole. Yeah, you don't have to do that every time.
So, I guess, anything else to talk about? I'm kind of glad that, as far as you've watched, they haven't paired Umika up with anyone, because considering how she does look uncomfortable every time something date or date-like comes up around her involving boys, she does look extremely uncomfortable, which lends credence to Umika being gay. I'm fine with that.
Mm-hmm.
Glad that's consistent, and
Yeah, I will say that after last week's marathon episode, I sort of was going to chalk this one up to a light episode.
Mm-hmm.
There was a auction. Noel and Umiko went to it, and then Noel did backflips. That's the episode.
It was entertaining, and I don't know if it would have been better or worse if we watched it without, waiting a while because of all the special episodes in the movie.
Yeah, I think going straight to it would have also been fine. The thing is, we had to fit the movie and those other episodes in somewhere.
Yeah, so we went to Lemon, we had her cool down with the specials, which, weren't as... They didn't cool down as hard as this episode did, and then we had the movie.
Yeah, so this cooldown is pulling double duty. Cooling us down from 25 and the movie. Yeah, this episode didn't have a whole lot to it. Thankfully, I don't think it's too much of a spoiler to say I'll probably have a lot to talk about the next episode.
Alright. And, I guess anything else I want to talk about prediction-wise? I feel like they're setting up distrust between the Pat Rangers and Noel again, because most of their time on screen was spent grumbling about Noel, and they didn't see him work with a Lupin Ranger out of the blue, so I feel like in terms of actual stuff happening, that's probably going to be pretty important.
Yeah, I do think they're constantly walking a line with Noel and the other groups.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you get the feeling he's never going to be fully accepted by any of them.
Yeah, episode 25 was a high point, but now we seem to be going towards... he seems to be a bit too buddy-buddy with the Lupins. Seems suspicious. I thought you beat them up to prove your loyalty.
He's hanging out with that good striker after he threw me down the leg of a robot. If you'd like to follow us on Twitter, we are at LRVSPR. Fafner is at Masamune. If you want to email us, you can email us at LupinRecap, vspatReview@gmail.com. and we will see you in the next episode.
Adieu.
Adieu.